Hello, everyone, and welcome to Polymathy Guide. My name's Kelly, and this is video 3 in our 50 video Excel mastery course. So, today we're going to be talking about the best practices as it pertains to data entry. And there's typically two different ways that you may enter data. You may enter it the first just from a raw spreadsheet like we see in front of us, and you might start by entering your headers and putting the information into columns and so on and so forth. We're likely all familiar with doing that, be it on a legal pad or in an Excel spreadsheet. The other is retrieving data from either a file or a source on the internet. And so we're going to go through basically both those scenarios real quick here. The first one we want to look at is retrieving information from an external source. And when I say external, I only mean external to this workbook. So if it's in a folder on your computer, that is external. If it's at a website, also external. And how we get there is by selecting our data tab. And there in the left side of the ribbon, you see this whole get and transform data section of the ribbon. And right off the bat, it's got a couple commonly used uh, places from which we can retrieve information. Do you want to pull in a picture? Do you want to get it from a text or CSV file? Do you want to pull it from the web? Uh, and if what we know the source is not here, we can also select this get data icon with the drop down caret, and we can see that for each of these from a file, it's got everything from XML to CSV to JSON. All these data sources you can from a database, from online services, or from other sources. And from other sources is actually the one we're going to look at because I want to pull information from the internet. And so I'm going to select from the web. And the first thing it wants to know is what's the address. And this is the most important bit of information that you need to have no matter where your data source is, your external data source. You need to know its address, be it HTTP, that whole web address, or if it's a place on your computer, C drive slash program files slash this folder slash that folder, that whole address. You're going to need to know that. Once you know that information, you're going to paste it into the URL or the address window um, of the dialog box. So here again, we're getting it from the web, and so it wants to know what is the address. Now, one of the my favorite places for just random information is a place called data.gov. And this has all the government information that they track, and they keep it in all sorts of formats, from HTML to JSON to Excel to CSV, which that's what we're going to focus on today is CSV, which again is comma separated values. So here we are, data.gov, and you can see they've got 353,000 and change data sets available. And so if we click this data tab up here at the top, we're going to see all these things that the government tracks that they have data sets on. And you can see right off the bat that they have, at the top layer, what formats that they have this information in. So we may want to say, wow, yeah, show me the Powerball winning numbers beginning in 2010. So I'm going to click this link here, and it's going to take me deeper into this Powerball winning numbers. And it's going to show me some more information. And it appears that this is data.newyork.gov. And yep, state of New York. And here we can see all the formatted files of this information. Now, if we click the download button, it's going to download like a file on our computer, and then we're going to have to go get it from our computer. But that's not what we want to do. We want Excel to go retrieve this information. And anytime we press refresh on our spreadsheet, we want it to go refresh that information from the source so we know that it's the most up to date information. So I'm going to hover over this comma separated values, and you can see that it presents as a hyperlink. And I'm going to click that, and it's going to take me to effectively the actual file location. And so again, we're given the option to download. We don't want to do that. This is the one that we care about, where it says URL and then it gives you its address. And so we're going to highlight, and I'm going to Control C to copy. And we're now officially done with that. I'm going to paste it in here into the URL window of my import dialog window. I'm going to press OK. And then a couple things are going to happen. This wants to know, do you want to use anonymous access for this web content? And so a lot of different options here for how you can say how your computer is presenting to the data source. But for almost all purposes, we're just going to say we're anonymous. And so we're going to connect. And then here you get a small preview of the information. And it tells you its file origin. It wants to know what is the delimiter. And the delimiter is the thing that separates the columns. And because this is a CSV that we were going after, that is a comma separated values. And so the delimiter is a comma. And you could see that there's many other options in here. And maybe we retrieve some information where um, the minus symbol or the ampersand symbol is the delimiter. We can do that here with custom. And of course, we have the option of fixed width. For example, if all of the information in each of our columns was 4 digits or 4 characters, we could go to fixed width and say, hey, every 4 characters then starts a new column. And it would delimit it. It would use that fixed width as the delimiter. But again, we're downloading a CSV, and so we know that the delimiter is comma, a data type detection. Just base it on the first 200 rows. Okay, so at this point, we can just load the entire data set onto our sheet. Now, maybe the data set is extremely large, and really, we only need a handful of common columns from the data set. That can be performed by transform data. And so if we select transform data, you can see that this is a fairly small data set as far as columns, and who knows how many rows there are. But nevertheless, you can see we have the option to choose columns or remove columns, keep rows or remove rows. Um, Maybe here with these winning numbers, we could split this column into each portion of the winning number. Bunch of neat stuff you can do here. And effectively, what's happening is that Excel has performed a query to the data source, and then it will go ahead and retrieve this information. And by using this transform data option as we execute this import, we're continuing to refine parameters of our query. Now, I'm fine with how it is, so I'm just going to say close and load. And yep, close and load. And then it's going to, there we go, 1,878 rows. Not a terribly big data set, but you can see that it comes in this baby spinach green, or whatever color you may interpret that as. I'm just simply going to click this table style, this little drop down caret to show me everything, and I'm going to go with no colors, just give me the goods. I want it nice and clean. There we go. So here we've got our data set, and you can see in good data set practice, each column has information in it. There are no gaps in the rows. And so when we go to manipulate this information, we're going to have no problems. Now, let's say, for example, our data set had that. In our 5 most common mistakes made in data sets, this is number 1. And that is empty rows, empty columns, or empty cells. So we never want to have an empty row. Maybe we need to differentiate this portion of the data set from this portion. We would want to do that through proper formatting, be it a thick border or something of that nature. But we would never want to leave a row blank or insert a blank row. We would never want to do that. And the reason being is because if you go to manipulate this information, let's say we want to sort it or whatever, more often than not, and Excel is actually better now than it used to be, but depending on what version you're using and depending on how many blank rows you have between uh, sections of information, Excel can interpret this as, looking down this set of information, it hits this gap and it says to itself, well, that's the end of the table. And so it will sort or filter this information, perceiving all of this to be a separate table of information. And so we never want to do that. We want to always keep things nice and tight, just like so. We never want to have, again, empty columns or empty cells. We don't want to have nothing. So we either enter a 0 or we enter an n/a or something. We can write a word. We can write a short phrase. Whatever it is that we choose to fill those gaps, we just want to make sure that method is continued throughout the column. So if we choose to put in NAs, everywhere that there's a gap, we should do NAs. And we just want to continue that method. Okay. So that is bringing in or importing a data set from an external source. And again, what I just showed you was a CSV from the internet. Whether you're getting a different format from the internet, whether you're getting a file from your computer, the most important thing, and I'll reiterate this, is that you know the address. If you know the address, then the query knows where to go to get it, right? And at any time, we can go to data and we can do a refresh, and boom, it refreshes. And you can see all the shenanigans that I did by deleting rows and putting an NA in there. It automatically refreshed to the most current data based on the information at the address it's retrieving it from. So you can create rules in here. When you download the information, there was like a basic and advanced, um, but you can create the rules where this refreshes every time you open it. It refreshes once a day. It only refreshes when you press refresh. A lot of different things in here. There, I just refreshed it again inadvertently. But nevertheless, it is now tied, so to speak, to that data source. Okay, let's go back to our clean sheet. We'll go ahead and delete this sheet because it's no longer needed. Now, when we put data in from the beginning, and let me see if I can find in my file here. There we go, a CSV. I'm going to close this dialog window over here to the right because we're already done with queries. So here is CSV information, and you can see every bit of information for this table is contained in column B. Now it's all here. There's all my column headers, and here's the information in each of the columns. But it's all smashed together in one column, and it's got a comma in between each section. Again, this is comma separated values. And so in order to break this out, we want to select our data tab. And here, just right of center, you see this text to columns icon. And that text to columns, if you select that, it's going to take you through this process where it asks you, is this delimited or is it fixed width? For example, fixed width being each column is 4 characters or 8 characters, or is there something that separates each column? Um, well, here a comma separates each column, so it's delimited. We're going to press next. And here, if we press semicolon or tab, it's going to give us an example of what our data set is going to look like after it's broken out. And here you can see if I say semicolon is the delimiter, it's all still smashed into one column. If instead I say it's comma, because it is, here you can see that the columns are now broken out and everything appears to be functioning correctly. And I can scan these columns and yep, it all looks good. So I'm going to press next, and it's going to say, do you want to format each of these columns now? I'm going to say no, there is no more next. And so I'm going to finish. And now my CSV, all merged into one column, is broken out across all the respective columns. So now at this point, I can take, for example, sales and bonus, and this is my preferred method using the home tab. Here in the middle, you can see is my number formatting. I'm going to make both of these accounting format, and I'm going to shift the decimal, or what's visible beyond the decimal. I'm going to move that to where nothing past the decimal is visible. So we get just good, clean, whole numbers or rounded numbers. And I can go to each one of these and format them accordingly. Maybe I only care about the main number with a person's score, and so I can get rid of those decimals, or I can show more. I prefer to format my information that way rather than doing it in the window, just because I can see all the information here, and the window's small, and it's just not my preferred method. Now over here, so sorry again. We talked about sin number 1, which was blank rows or columns. Sin number 2 is merge cells, and we don't like merge cells. And if you like merge cells, unlike merge cells. Merge cells are not good for us when it comes to manipulating data. There is a place for it, and that's when we present our information to the end user. But that's so far from the data set that it's not even worth talking about further here. Just know there is a time and place for merge cells, but when messing with your data set, that's not it. So maybe though we want to give this data set a header, and maybe this is called employee information. Okay. But it really would look nice more centered up on the data set. And so this is the point at which somebody would select all these cells and merge and center. But again, we don't want to merge, but we want it to look merged so that it looks better. And so what we can do is select all these cells. We can right click and we can go to format cells. And here in the alignment tab, we have the option to adjust the alignment horizontally side to side or vertically top to bottom. And so here, let's go vertically, let's make it centered. And horizontally, you see we have left, center, right, fill, the usual suspects. But down here towards the bottom, we have this option to center across selection. So if we select that, we're going to press OK. And so you can see here, it looks centered, even to the point of there's no visible cells in that section. However, you can see if I use my arrow keys on my keyboard, these are in fact individual cells and nothing is merged. It simply appears merged. And so we can make this, a little bit bigger and we can make it bold, and there you have it. So we effectively have a name for our data set, or a data set title bar if you wish, but we haven't compromised any of the cells by merging them. So that's a handy little trick. The next sin we want to keep from committing is multiple pieces of information in a cell. So for each cell, and here's the rule, one piece of information per cell and one data type per column. So here we have department, and here we have city. This is all good. Everything's great. Now over here, I made a fictitious data set. So I didn't use real people's names but for the purpose of this demonstration, let's just say that there's a John Smith and there's a Susan Smith and Dave Jones. Oh no. Dave Jones. Let's try that again. Let's say there's a Spencer Witt and a Dominic Cruz, and I think that that's enough for the demonstration. So let's say, for example, we had created this data set, or we retrieved the data set. It really makes no difference. But we or somebody had entered first name, last name, first name, middle initial, last name, whatever. See, this is two pieces of information in one cell, and we never want to do that. And so what we can do is we can insert a cell, and we can write Smith, and we can write Smith. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling the last name out of the column to the left. But more importantly, what I'm doing is I'm establishing a pattern. And you'll see that when I go to type the J in Jones. So once Excel recognizes the pattern that I've established, it will say, hey, is this the pattern? And of course, we get down here to person 6, person 7. It doesn't recognize that's a first and last name, which is probably for the best. But Um, for the ones where I continue to write their name, you can see it pulls the last name, and we'll pretend that the rest of these are pulling the last name. And I'll say, yeah, I'll press enter, and there it goes. Now, this thing could be 400,000 rows, and by simply establishing 3 cells of pattern, it understands and will finish it for us. So maybe here we type last name, and here maybe we write first name. And so we can do the same thing, John, and we didn't even get halfway through Susan. And it already understands. Look, I think I know what you want me to do. Is that right? Dave, Spencer, Dominic. Yeah, sure. In fact, it even started to separate out person from the number. So you see, it's trying really hard to understand our pattern. And for demonstration purposes, it's not necessarily important what's happening with these fake person 15 or whatever. What is important is these first 5 where I put the actual name in. So yeah, okay, perfect. So now we've taken a sin of multiple pieces of information, and we've rectified that by simply establishing a pattern and allowing Excel to take over for us. Now, of course, all this stuff is inconsequential, so we'll just highlight and delete that. Um, yeah, so handy bit of information. And of course, this is the Excel 2025. This is December, uh, Microsoft Office 365. So you may be on an older version in which that feature has not been enabled yet. But if that's the case, um, we can definitely get to a place where we can still break that out. We just have to do it through formula. Or you can see here, and let me give myself some space. You can see here that if I took this data and the same way that we use the comma to delimit between the columns, here we can use a space. And if we went back to data and our text to columns, is it delimited? Yes. What is the delimiter? Well, it's not a comma, it's actually a space. There you can see what starts to happen. It's going to separate first name from last name because there's a space there. So next, do you want to format? No, I'm just going to finish. And there it gives me John Smith. And in fact, this was more effective at separating out to include person 7, person 9, what have you, than Excel trying to interpret our pattern. Nevertheless, and as always, uh, that is the theme in Excel. There are many different ways to achieve an objective in Excel, and which is the best way? The one that you're most comfortable with. At the end of the day, that's going to be the fastest for you. There are, of course, uh, just fundamentally very quick methods. Establishing a pattern is extremely quick, but you can see with the person 6 and 7 and 10, it doesn't always play well depending on what's entered into those cells. Okay, enough on that soapbox. Sin number 4, only 2 sins left that we want to always avoid: aligning with spaces instead of using proper formatting. So here, let's say that we want to show visually that person 6 and person 7 and all these persons work for Dominic Cruz. Well, maybe then I'll come in here and I'll use 4 spaces and 4 spaces, and was it 4 or was it 5? and then I lost count about how many times I clicked the space bar. Anyways, it ends up looking like that. And we've all seen this. It's terrible. Uh and the reason is because we're trying to force Excel to do something in a manner that was not designed. The spacebar was not designed, in Excel to indent things. There is a function for which we can properly indent, for example. And so when we want to do something like that, we instead want to opt for proper formatting rather than using a space bar or tab or anything that involves going into the edit mode of a cell to move information around, because inevitably you're going to get things misaligned inadvertently. um, so maybe somebody's going to enter information into your data set and they don't know that it's four spaces or what have you. And so here, if we go to home, we can see in this alignment section, similar to Word, is the increase or decrease the indent. And so we can press that a couple times to increase the indent. And here we've got this very nice looking and perfectly aligned indent. Now, maybe we later realize that person 13 is actually um, Tom Jones. And Tom Jones, all these people work for Tom Jones. Well, but Tom doesn't work for Dominic Cruz. So we need to move Tom back over. We just simply go up here and decrease the indent. And there we go. Now it looks like all these people work for Tom Jones, right? So, moral of the story, always opt for proper formatting rather than essentially brute forcing some bit of information to move by way of editing a cell. Okay, last one, inconsistent or ambiguous date formats. Uh, 0103. 0103. What is this? Is that the 3rd of January? Maybe we say 0123. Is that the 23rd of January or is that January 2023? Hard to say. Now we can make some assumptions, but you know how that saying goes. What we really want to do is we want to provide 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. And for reasons that go well beyond just an Excel spreadsheet, and most importantly into folder structures and file structures, what we really want to do is, for example, 2026 02 16. We want to format it in such a way that it's year, month, day. And I'll go ahead and format my cells by right clicking and selecting format cells. And then I'm going to go to number and we can see date here. And somewhere in here, there it is a 4-digit year, 2-digit month, and 2-digit day. There you go. This is the absolute preferred method for organization of dates. In Excel, we can get away with a lot of stuff by identifying that this particular column is a date column. Uh, but best practices are best practices, and so really you want to be in the habit of writing year, month, day. When you get into folder and file structure, um, all those will automatically sort oldest to newest or newest to oldest depending on how your sort is. But if you, for example, were to go month, day, year, then all the Januaries are going to lump together, and then all the Februaries are going to lump together. and it's going to create a real problem for you. And you completely bypass that by going year, month, day, and always 2-digit month, always 2-digit day, and 4-digit year. So that way there's no confusion about uh, what is the month, what is the year, etc. Um, and additionally, um, it indicates that you have not inadvertently left a number off. So maybe this was December 16th, right? But if I just had a 2 there instead of a 12, then people would think it was February when in reality I just mistyped and I missed the 1. So by having a 2-digit month, it always fills that space. And again, it kind of harkens back to uh, one of our other sins, which is no blank columns, no blank rows, no blank spaces. And so here we filled every space in a date, so there can be no misinterpretation. Okay. All right. So practice data set. Here's what I recommend: go to data.gov, um, trace down a CSV file for some random data set, and practice bringing that information into your spreadsheet. And then take that information and go through it. Look for some of these sins. Look for instances in which 2 bits of information have been put into one cell, or look for cells or columns or rows where there are gaps. Um, Nobody's immune from making these mistakes, and these mistakes come back to bite us. And so, see if you can find data sets on data.gov where that information uh, has violated some of these rules. Again, we're looking for gaps. We're looking for alignment. We're looking for date inconsistencies, multiple pieces of information in a cell. See what you can find. I think you'll have fun messing around like that. Okay, so uh, that's going to conclude our best practices for data entry. We talked about bringing in information from an external source, whether it's from the internet or from your computer or from another workbook. What's most important is that you identify the address. And then we've talked about creating this information from scratch and how you can manipulate it. So I'll see you guys in video 4. And as always, if you know anybody that can benefit from this type of video, forward my channel along to them, be it a family, friend, or colleague. I sure would appreciate it. See ya.